Hi, welcome to the Museum of the History of U.S. Incarceration. My name is Stefano, and I'll be your guide today. Naturally, U.S. incarceration has been around for years, but the true boom didn't really hit until Reconstruction. But before that, let's take a step back, shall we? Prisons were used on plantations as a form of punishment, something that we will address later. But when the 13th Amendment hit, slave convicts weren't abolished for. Confederate states took advantage of the wording of the 13th Amendment to replenish the labor force lost with prisoners. And soon enough, prison labor added to the US economy, especially with the problems left behind by Reagan and globalization, but I don't want to go too much on a tangent. Now, prisoners didn't just live in dangerous and overcrowded conditions, were also subjugated to dangerous work conditions with little to no pay. Starting along the north in the 19th century, urbanization and globalization brought along labor scarcities through factory work. No one wanted to do dirty work for little pay anymore, and not many can blame them. But prisoners put to work to fill in that gap. Post-Civil War, the South took on this idea with swiftness. They enacted the convict lease system, in which states would release prisoners to private companies for labor. Prisoners were forced to pick cotton, mine coal, lay railroads, and other dirty and intense labor. Some death rates in reaching close to 40% in some states. Sadly, industry managers and state higher-ups supported it. Just in the first year of the convict lease system, American prisoners brought in, get this, a sum equivalent of over $30 billion in 2005 dollars. Prison and industry higher-ups rationalized it by saying it benefits the prison workers with soft skills, work ethic, and an ability to come out of prison and straight back into the job market. Yet, the questionable work conditions, little to no pay, and the dependence that some states have on it makes skeptics see it as just another continuation of slavery. Now, let's step back again really quick to address the social dynamic. Here, we have a picture of an enslaved person by the name of Gordon. As you can see, the harsh wounds on his back, slave owners used punishment to keep their power over their plantations, as they were easily outnumbered by their slaves. This just led to a vicious cycle. Masters revered revolt, so they excessively punished their slaves. The cruelty led to revolts and other forms of disobedience, which in turn just fed the fear of the masters, causing an increase in the already cruel punishments. Strict laws were used to over-police African Americans after the 13th Amendment. Known as Black Codes, African Americans were imprisoned for the smallest of crimes or innocence of tasks, such as talking too loudly or walking the wrong side of the street or even just dressing dirty. These Black Codes were meant to keep African Americans as second class, but also ended up providing for forced-free labor. Now, let's take a look at our open exhibit of this place the museum was based on, the Parchment Prison Farm. The state of the prison was just like other prisons along the southeast, if not worse, but Parchment itself never really improved much. In more recent times, Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark, head of the Justice Department of the Civil Rights Division, said that 10 homicides and 12 suicides have occurred among inmates at Parchment since 2019, but the punishments these days weren't exactly the same as before. Intense of the such hard and harsh labor as seen here, and extreme timeout was the name of the game, but here it's just terrible. This marks the first time the Justice Department has concluded that the prison's use of solitary confinement violates the constitutional rights of people without serious mental illnesses. Over 150 inmates filed a federal lawsuit in 2020 over their treatment at Parchment, saying that they were denied adequate medical and health care, fed contaminated food, and retaliated against for speaking with their attorneys. Overall, Parchment is just a terrible place that's never really been improved much. Luckily, this brought along a greater intent for reform, which we will address later. All we have talked about so far is the terrible conditions and harsh labor requirements, but the tasks and the pictures most, if not only, showed men, which is a misconception of itself. There's also a good amount of women incarcerated as well. Women within the prison systems are typically single mothers or victims of domestic violence, but for those that were in prison for crimes they are more likely to be incarcerated for non-violent actions than violent ones. They also had to perform labor themselves, but were given jobs like sewing bed sheets and jumpsuits, while also maintaining a small farm at Parchment. Well, one of the smaller ones though, of course. Now, regardless of gender, criminal justice in the American South has been unjustly and disproportionately affecting African Americans since the Civil War. As of 2017, not much has changed regarding women in the prison system, as the vast majority of them are still women of color, while 86% are victims of sexual violence. As mentioned before, prison labor is highly lucrative. but workers not protected by U.S. workplace laws. The ACLU Prison Labor Report shows that nearly 800,000 prisoners make up for the prison labor industry. While the Bureau of Statistics surveyed revealed that 76% of incarcerated workers said that they're prison mandated working. If they refuse, they risk facing additional punishment such as solitary confinement, or loss of visitation privileges. Luckily, there's been a greater push for change. Prison reform is on the midterm ballot for 5 states this year: Alabama, Louisiana, Oregon, Vermont, and Tennessee. So make sure you go vote if you can. On the ballot, there are proposals to essentially ban forced prison labor. It would remove the language that permits forced prison labor. Something that to note is that almost 20 states' constitutions have language that permits it, while only 3 other states have changed language to ban it: Colorado in 2018, Utah and Nebraska in 2020. Other close to 30 states pretty much only stand in the middle. Other forms of reform would include improvements of quality of life to reduce reoffenders, educational programs, as well as steps to improving mental health treatment for prisoners are great for the reform. And with that, concludes our tour. I really hope this was an educational experience for you, and I can only urge everyone to vote if they can. Don't belittle yourself though, because we can all make a difference, just one step at a time. This museum is my step, while this book was hers. What would be yours? Thank you.